Why do people still care about email lists? Why can't you just if you're making a poetry business or an art business, why can't you just do it on like a social media account? Well, today we're going to be talking about why trying to go off of social media platforms, off platform, you want to make your own platform. Why do you want to do that? We're going to talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of not doing so. This is spring semester, so it's a 12-week module where our goal is getting people to start thinking about ways that you can actually live on the art that you create. What's up, guys? My name is Geoff with No. I am a full poet trying to help you live on poetry, and there's a couple different platforms that you can use that you have much greater control over than if your typical social media platforms. Because here's the problem with typical social media accounts. If you're like, I don't want to make my own website, I don't want to pay for that, or I don't want to pay for, email list stuff or whatever. The problem is that if you are solely reliant on a social media account, you are beholden to the algorithm, which means the way most of these algorithms work, and they have their own kind of separate settings, but the general idea is that you post content. How far that content goes is entirely dependent on how the first people who see that content respond to it. And if they respond well, then it gets shown to another group of people. And if they respond well, it gets shown to another group of people, and so on and so forth. So you have to keep kind of passing these tests and barometers. And as soon as it stops performing, the faucet gets shut off, right? It no longer gets viewed. Now, there's some platforms, for instance, like YouTube, where a video, for instance, I see this on my channels all the time, videos that I made in like 2019, 2020 are still getting views here in 2026. But it's still this idea that you're not really controlling who gets to see your stuff, because one of the things is, I have these two YouTube channels that each have 20,000 subscribers. But when I post a video, I can tell you that 20,000 people are not being told that I have a video out. In fact, even here on Diverses, we have about 900 subscribers, and there's not 900 people that see my videos. On the Facebook and Instagram profiles that we have, we have hundreds of subscribers there, but I post something and not every single person who's pressed subscribe or follow or any of those things is seeing everything I post. So there's this bottleneck, right? The algorithm is determining who gets to see my stuff. So this is the huge disadvantage, because let's say you start a new program, a new service, a new group call, you have a new product that comes out, and you have people that actually would be very interested in hearing about it, but they're not seeing that you launched it. They have no idea. You could even make a post like 5 times a day and they still might not even see it. You're still not guaranteed. So this is why it's super important for us at some point to develop some sort of strategy that is not reliant on social media platforms entirely. It's something that we have control over. So I'm going to walk you through some basic ideas that you can consider for yourselves and your own platforms. So first of all is just creating an email list. Okay, email list, ask for people's emails, they give it to you. So then this is called permission marketing. This is something you can look up. Again, the big name in this is once more Seth Godin. And this idea that people are signing up, people are giving you permission to communicate with them. Whereas on social media, those platforms, you're not choosing what you're being shown. In fact, the way they operate now, at least this year, is this interest-based. So they're picking things for you that they think that you would like to see. Very often, you half the posts you see, if not more, are from people you've never even heard of before. That's how they're all operating. And so with an email list, you have their email, you push something out, it goes to their email. Now, this is still not necessarily a perfect solution. Okay, people may not open their email. Also, you eventually are going to probably need a service if your email list gets big enough. The email lists I have, fortunately, are I think the largest one is a couple hundred, maybe like 400 people. It's not quite at the threshold that I want to be encouraging you to be aware of. Eventually, when it gets too large, what's going to happen is when you send out messages, it can consider them spam. So you may need a platform, for instance, like MailChimp or something like that, to send out more emails, because the other thing that can happen too is that when you send emails, for instance, send out things to Gmail, if Gmail thinks that your message is spam, or not even necessarily thinks, they may know that your message is not spam, but they want you to pay for features and stuff like that. They may send your emails to the promotions folder, or they may throw it into the spam folder to people you're reaching out to. So this is still not necessarily even a perfect method. However, in general, if I have people's emails and I send them an email, I have a much higher chance of that message reaching them versus if I just make a post online. Another way that you can start to reach more people and be guaranteed that the people who sign up see what you do is, for instance, on a website. For instance, if you create your own little forum, for instance, we have the Substation online where we're posting poems for reviews and talking about some other projects and things. When I post things there, all people are a member, when they go there, they see it. And in fact, they can sign up for email notifications so they can get pushed when new information and new posts go up. And again, that's a platform that I have control over. A couple other considerations. Telegram. Telegram, not as popular in the US, a little more popular, especially in like Eastern Europe, but you can still sign up for a Telegram. And what it does is it's an app. People can join groups, and then whatever you post in your group, it can be private or public, everyone else can see. It's very similar. Another platform you're probably more familiar with, if you haven't heard of Telegram, is like WhatsApp. WhatsApp, same thing. I like Telegram a bit more than WhatsApp. I like has some more privacy features. Also, I think if you're an administrator of a group, I think you have greater control. But both of these platforms, if your users have them, for instance, installed on their phones, when you post stuff, they're going to get like the notification thing on their device. So they'll be able to see when you post stuff. And so you'll have greater control of people seeing what it is that you provide. In addition to that, you can have settings so they can communicate with each other, or it can just be you, however you want to do it. Another thing that may work is a group message. So you don't necessarily have control on the platforms, but if you have a group message, people will still get notified for like when you post something there or send a message there. So that could be another consideration. For instance, for Diverses, we have the Columbus Poetry Event Calendar. So I'm just looking at all the poetry events that are going on around the city, and whatever I find, I post there. And all the people who, again, have given me permission because they've joined the group. I didn't force them to join the group. They chose voluntarily to join. So then they get notified whenever I post something that I find local in the city. Now, in terms of spreading the word about these groups or email lists or whatever it is that you decide to make, one thing that can be helpful is a QR code. They have QR code generators. You can find them on Google. I would really recommend typing like a free one. Even if it's not a free one, though, what you can do is basically you'll go to the website. They'll ask you for what's the link that you want to make a QR code to. You put in the link. It'll then generate the QR code. If it's free, you can just download it. If they want to charge you for it, what you could do is you could just take a screenshot of the QR code and then just crop out anything and then use that QR code as well. That's another little workaround. But in general, it should be relatively easy to find a free QR code generator. And then you could post those, for instance, on your social media posts. For instance, for the Columbus Poetry Event Calendar, we have a QR code that we put right around the top of our Instagram. We've also used it on like YouTube banners and Facebook banners and Instagram things as well. If you have in-person events, having that QR code visible can be really helpful too. One of the last things I'll say about trying to create these private platforms for messaging. This is really great. This pairs with actually the book we're looking at right now in the Creative Companionship is Daniel Priestley's Key Person of Influence. He has another book called Oversubscribed, which is all about how do you create events that people attend. And one of the key things when you're creating events is there has to be some tension. People don't act unless there's tension. And one of the ways that you can have tension is trying to gauge how many people are interested in an event and then determining the number of seats. And if 100 people express that they're interested in an event, then that does not mean you have 100 seats, because I can tell you 100 people are not going to come. So how do you get more people to come? Well, if you were to create, say, like a private WhatsApp group or like a private Telegram group or a private email list, I prefer the former, like the WhatsApp group or the Telegram group, or if it's like maybe even a Facebook group potentially. And the reason I prefer them is because it can also be maybe an Instagram group message. You want people to be able to see how many other participants there are, because this is going to help create the tension. Because then if there's 100 participants in the group, if you're like, hey guys, I'm holding this event at the end of May, we're still deciding space and venue size, but if you're interested, go here and I'll keep sending you updates. It almost becomes like a wait list, right? You can even make it a wait list if you want. So then people join there, and then based on how many people go there, you can then determine how many seats to have. Some of the general numbers for people who you're making multiple messages and people are extremely interested, you basically want to have seats that are like a fifth of that number. So like if 20 people keep showing genuine interest in what you're doing, then maybe you want to have about 5-6 seats. For people that seem interested, like they've liked it and maybe they joined a group but they haven't interacted a lot, maybe about a tenth of that number. So if you have again like 20 people doing that, then maybe plan for like 2 or 3 seats. And then for people who you make the post and they don't actually join, but maybe they like it or maybe they leave a comment, but then that's it. Well, then for that number, it's very soft or very cold, like 100th of whatever that number is. So if like you have like 100 people doing that sort of stuff, then you can be projecting maybe a single seat of people actually coming. Again, there's a variety of other factors too, but if you're planning your first event and you're like, I have no idea what to expect, this at least can kind of give you a guideline to consider. And the last part about that is when people are able to see that there's other people in the group, it creates a little bit of tension, because then when you announce the seat numbers, you're like, hey guys, based on what I'm seeing, I think 5 seats is reasonable for this event, but there's 20 of us in the group. Well, who's going to get those 5 seats? That's going to spur people to act. It's very hard to get one person who's alone to do something, but when you have more people doing the thing, it makes everything much easier in terms of planning and getting people to act. Now, if you are new to this whole idea of creating a business around your poetry or your art and just living on your poetry in general, I encourage you to check out the very first episode from the semester, because it walks through all the steps that have led us here in this video.